Hey guys, let's do a quick recap on what we have been doing so far. So we were automating an API. It's an open API. It's a free online REST API for testing and prototyping. We were automating it. We created some test cases for it. So we have some GET requests. This is the collection, Postman collection, which I created. And in this I have around 17 requests, and each request can be seen as a separate test case. So get, post, put, patch, opt, and delete is what I have written here. And so far we are done with all the get request, and we are done with the post request. So post for a positive test case where I'm creating a user. Now before we continue and automate more scenarios here, I would like to introduce a new concept called as BDD. As I promised, the whole series is about, as we discussed in the past as well, we will be doing this API automation using Cucumber. And I think we spent few sessions on how can we few sessions on API, learning API and how that API works, and how that how to validate the API responses, how to send the requests, the various requests, various types of requests, all those things. And I also introduced rest assured. So were automating API using rest assured, but still we are using a very basic framework called a JUnit. So instead of using this JUnit, as we discussed earlier as well, we are supposed to use Cucumber to introduce the BDD. Now, you may ask why we are doing BDD, because in this also it's working fair enough. I mean, it's working nicely. When I run it, it works fine. But there is some catch. So industry is moving towards BDD. The primary reason for it, the readability of your test. That's a primary focus of why we are people using BDD. Of course, BDD has many implications. So first and foremost, the most important aspect of a BDD is that anyone should be able to read it, and they should be able to understand it. Now, if I give this to my manager, or if I give this to my requirement, or I show this to my client, he will not get much information about it. He will not know what these dots are, what is this code. He will get scared easily by seeing this code. But what if I give him something like, let me show you an example, something like this. So when he sees this, he will actually can read it. He can actually know what's happening behind the scene, right? So this is what we are trying to implement. We will be implementing for our API framework as well, the stuff which we are doing right now. Now, to understand it better, I will have to cover some theory, but not all. Few things I would expect you guys to go and study and read on your own. But the basics and how we will implement this in our framework is what I'm going to cover, and I'm going to explain the practical aspect of it. So BDD, as I said, is a concept. It's not an implementation. Now there are different implementations available for BDD. Right, so understand this difference. BDD stands for behavior driven development. It's not only for test case testing, it's for a complete development life cycle. But for us, for this specific case, we don't have a developer here, so we are not going to use this for a complete development life cycle. Instead, we are going to use only for our test cases. So only for test framework we are planning to use the BDD model. Now, that, as I said, there are different frameworks available which supports BDD. One of the famous frameworks which we have which supports BDD is Cucumber. Okay, so Cucumber is actually an open source library which supports BDD, and that is what we are going to use for automation of this API. And we are going to implement that BDD Cucumber concept for structuring, or I should say restructuring this code. So when you see this test case, this is the only entry point which you see. But once we implement the Cucumber, we will have a feature file similar to this, and that is what will be driving the whole test set. So each scenario here will be representing a test case similar to this. Now, to start working with it, as I said, I will not be covering every aspect of BDD. I would expect people to read about it. I will actually show you what are the links and places where you can go and read it. So first and foremost, the best link to do it is the owner of the Cucumber, this main primary site for it. You'll get lot of information here. So always go to the primary source first, and before you go towards any secondary website to learn the concept, first go to the owner of it, right? So this is the original site. You go here, you study what, there very good documentation, written in a very lucid format. You should read everything here, right? For now, I will explain, as I said, I will explain the practical aspect of it. How will you implement that in your framework? So let me begin. So this is our framework. This was our original framework, Batch 8 Cucumber Selenium API. And I've been doing everything in this temporary package called as trial.junit. But not anymore, because I will be creating a separate package and I will structure things, right? So before I even go ahead, I need to download the dependencies. So as I said, this Cucumber is external library, and we need to import this library into our framework, into our project. So to do that, since this is a Maven project, I will be able to do it using POM file. So right now I have only two dependencies here, IO rest assured and JUnit. I am assuming that you know what Maven is and how Maven works. If not, then again, I would recommend you guys to read about it. Anyway, I have explained this in the previous sessions of this video chain, so maybe you can go back and see what it is, how this works. And I will also conduct another video for specifically targeted on Maven. Anyway, so let me add a dependency here. So how will I get that dependency? You can get it from anywhere. I mean, you can also get it from here. So if I say installations, let's see if I get it from here. Cucumber JVM is what I need. By the way, if I go a little one step back, so these are different implementations of Cucumber in different languages. So in all the major languages, Cucumber implementation is available. You let it be Ruby, Python. Anyway, the original version of Cucumber was written in Ruby. Then we have Behave in Python. So you take any language and you will get the implementation of Cucumber. Anyway, you can get the implementation of it. Now if I go and click this, which is, so Java version of Cucumber is called as Cucumber JVM. So this is the Maven dependency tag which you can actually copy from here and paste it here like this. But in this case I will not use this because the current version of this is 5.5.0, and I'm not interested in it because I have some different libraries which is supporting only previous versions. For example, extend report version which I have supports 4.2. So I'm not going to go to the latest version. So I will better copy the older one, which is, let me copy it from here. So I already have it here. So I'm going to copy these two things, which is dependency. So this is cucumber.java and cucumber.junit, and Cucumber version I will have to again copy it from the top. I'm using Cucumber version as 4.2.0. This is what I'm using. I'm not saying you can't elevate this version, you can, and still it would work just fine. But as I said, I want to introduce some more concepts of extend report and all, and for that I am relying on this version because that's turned out to be more stable one for me. So I'm still on this 4.2.0, and most of the industry is working on 4.2, something above 4, and it's not very advisable in the environment to keep on changing the versions every time. So there are many projects who started with 4.0.0, 4.2.0. They still are working on 4.2.0 without having to bother about the problems of elevating a version, because some few things might break when you change the versions. Anyway, so I'll using 4.2.0 here, and there's one more dependency which I would like to add, which is Pico container, IO Cucumber Pico container. I will explain the advantage of it later, the use case of this later, and you can also check here for dependency injection. So I will explain that dependency injection. I have done that in the past. I have explained that in another video, but I will do this again as a part of this video chain. I will add that. So I have now 3 dependencies for Cucumber. Once we are done with it, we are ready to go. And for me, nothing is being downloaded because everything is downloaded previously, so I am not seeing anything. But if you do it for the first time, you will see a lot of downloads happening. So let it happen before you actually start working with it. Now next step is to create a feature file. So where will you go and create a feature file? It's always, as I said, feature file, it's not a Java file. So all the non-Java files are to be added inside source test resource in Maven. So right click, create new. I'll create maybe a folder, and the folder I give it a name as features, finish. And here I will create perhaps another folder. I'll give it a name as API. I'll click on finish, and then inside this I will create a file. So this file I'll give it name as, let's say, get request feature file, feature. By the way, I don't actually have to write this feature here because the extension suggests it's a feature file. So get request.feature, click on finish. As soon as I do this, I get this automatic template here created. Now how it is able to do this? Because I have a plugin in my Eclipse. So if I show you that, you have to go to Eclipse Marketplace, and here you need to search for Cucumber plugin, and you will get that plugin there. So I'll show you. I'll go to Cucumber Eclipse plugin, this. So we have to install this. Once you install it, you will get this kind of view, and you'll get to see this kind of symbols, and it will identify this file as a feature file. Now, if you're not able to do it, there's no problem, because this Cucumber plugin is different than what I've added here. So actually what runs your test case is this, not the plugin. Okay. So this is the deal. What you have here in Eclipse Marketplace, it's only for identification of these kind of files, and so that it understands these files. That's it. Otherwise, it has no utility when it comes to the execution part. Execution part will be taken care by this. So if you don't have it, or you're not able to install it, don't worry. You can still run your test cases. You can still write your test cases. Anyway, so let me close this one. Don't save. Get request. Now I have a get request template. Now if you can see, there are few examples, the few templates which is written here. By the way, this hash symbol indicates a comment. If you want to comment specific line, you're going to put a hash symbol up in it, so it will comment that line. Now this file is actually in Cucumber becomes an executable file. That means Cucumber will read this file to execute your test cases. Each scenario here represents a test case. So when it comes to putting this into contrast with this, so if I open this here, this test is equivalent to a scenario in your Cucumber. So we have a feature file. By the way, these are reserved keywords. So this feature is a reserved keyword, this scenario is a reserved keyword, and this given when then is a reserved keyword. That means these are the keywords using which Cucumber understands the sequence of execution. Okay, and this is how it also understands how you will write a scenario. This is the mandate of a Cucumber file, to write your requirements or your test case in given when then format. So given here represents, or if I put this into contrast to a test case, how a test case works in any kind of test case and testing, how you write that test case. The first step you do is given, right? Something is there, then you do something, and when you do something, then something happens, right? For example, you want to test a login functionality, you will say given I have browser and URL navigated. This is a requirement. Before you go and test a login, you need to write that given statement. When I enter username, and when, so there can be multiple whens, right? When I enter password, when I click submit button, now then part, that's the validation part. Then user should be able to log in. right? So this is a test case. The same way you can write test cases in Cucumber format, right? So in the given, you are saying something is there. When I do something, then something happens. So let's do one thing. Let me structure this file for our request. So we have get request. This feature file name is get request. So we will try to write a scenario for get request here. So I'll write when, or I should write feature name is I am. As I said, this is a Cucumber file. That means it's a plain English file. You can write your own requirements in your plain English language. It should be lucid enough for everyone to understand. So you can use these terms like I am trying to do something, or I am testing get request for Go REST API. And you can add more details here, but for now I'm not doing it. And then in the scenario, I'll explain what this tag is later, but for now let's keep it simple. So scenario get request for get request API. So I'm going to write get request API for getting user information, right? Something similar to what we have written here. So get request fetch all users, right? So that is what we can write as well. I mean, we can write here something like this: get request, maybe something written in some better way. So get request to fetch all users. This is what we are trying to automate using this get all users. Now the next step. So we want to automate this API. What should be the given part? So in the given, I should be writing given the API or the get or the Go REST API is up and running, right? Because that is the prerequisite, right? Then up and running, or you can also write up and running with server name as, I mean, you can pass server name as well here, the Go REST and all, but let's not do it for now because we are using configuration file to do that. So I'll just simply write Go REST API is up and running. Then and so in this case I don't need an end, so I'll remove it. So Go REST API is up and running when I hit the API with get request. When I hit the API with get request, then what should happen? Let me remove this. Then I validate the outcome. So in this case I will write then API should return all the entities, all the users, right? This is actually a test case. This is what we tested here, isn't it? So we wrote something like this. So given base URI is this, when I do something, then I would validate something. Now the good part with using rest assured with Cucumber is that you can actually relate what's happening. So here I written given, when, then, and if you notice, the rest assured is also managed in the same way. In rest assured we have a given statement, till here we have given, then we have a when statement from here till here, and then we have a then statement from here till here, right? And that this is what makes this easy, Cucumber easy to be used with rest assured, because the given part, the code of given, we'll put this inside this, the when part we are going to put here, and the then part of the code we are going to put here. Anyway, before we even go forward with that, let me remove this because I don't need it for now. And for now, let me remove this as well. So let's keep it simple. The tag, I will remove this tag. Maybe I will, or maybe I'll write here get, and I'll remove this one. So my scenario file becomes very easy. Now you notice that this is coming in yellow, right? The problem is this is a simple plain text file. It will not execute on its own. What I need to do is I need to associate a method with this file, sorry, with this line. So maybe I will explain this in a better way on a whiteboard perhaps. So let me share a whiteboard. Share. Right. So what I'm suggesting is that we create this is a feature file, and every line here in this is feature file, let's say, is a given when then statement. Then this is, let's say, for example, your feature file, right? This is your feature file. Now this feature file in itself cannot run anything. Okay, so what Cucumber needs is that you in Java create another file. Now this file will be called as a step definition file. Step definition file. And this actually is nothing but your plain Java code, plain Java class file. And the purpose of this file will be that it will map. Let me draw something else. There will be a methods here, method 1, method 2, method 3. And the whole and sole idea will be to map each of this feature file steps to the corresponding methods here. So for example, when Cucumber reads this line, when Cucumber reads this line, it will actually execute this method. When Cucumber reads, for example, this line, it actually executes this method. So in short, it's the method execution which is happening, but there's another abstraction layer on top of it. That is what Cucumber is all about. So let me go back again. So all these steps which you see here has to be associated with a method, without which you can run nothing. It will run nothing basically. So what we need to do is, and I was also talking about an abstraction layer. So this feature file is nothing but an abstraction layer. And this abstraction layer is what is keeping our Cucumber test case readable. Because now if I send this to a BA or a manager or a client, he can actually read what's happening, what is being tested. He can know and understand that there's an API up and running. When someone hit the API with some GET request, API should return all the users. But here there's one thing missing. I will add that. So when I hit the API with GET request and endpoint. So because in this case I need to enter some endpoint as well, isn't it? So endpoint, and in this case my endpoint is this. So now it is very clear for anyone to understand that if I hit the API with GET request and endpoint as this. Now if you notice, I am writing endpoint as double quotes. I'll explain the significance of this later, but understand this as a parameter. So there will be a method associated with this, and that method will accept a parameter, an argument with this value. This is what it means. But for now, I'll just keep it as it is. What I'll do next is, now the next step will be to run this file. Now, how will I run it? To run this file, Cucumber suggests multiple ways, but there's one way which I will use in this specific case, that is a runner file, the concept of a runner file. You can also get different ways of running a feature file, from Cucumber documentation, right? So Cucumber documentation suggests many things. How can you run it? So there can be a mechanism to run it via runner test. There can be mechanism via running via CLI, command line interface. But here I will use runner file. So what I'll do, I will compress this. I'll right click, new, I'll create a package, and the package I'll write a runner. Or rather, I'll create one more package called as, let's say, step devs. Finish. So I have a runner file, I have a step devs file. Now next what I'll do is, in the runner file, I will do a right click and I create a class. The class the name I'll give it as run test. By the way, I can give it any name, doesn't matter, but I'm choosing to give it name as run test because there's a plugin in Maven called as Surefire. Now, Surefire is a plugin which actually is responsible for running the test if you are executing it via Maven. Okay. Now, the peculiar thing about that plugin is it reads all the .java file in your project and it finds a file which has a name as test, or which in the name which contains a text called as test. If it finds such file, it executes it automatically, right? That's the reason whenever you create a runner file, you always give it a name as run test or something, maybe test run or something like this. The idea is test should be in the name of the file, otherwise Surefire will not pick it up automatically. That doesn't mean it will not pick it up at all. It can still pick it up, but you need to configure that in the Surefire plugin. I will talk about it later. Again, I have recorded a video on it, so you can watch it. But for now, we'll keep things simple. We'll write run test, and we click on finish. So next thing which I would do is I will try to write something at the top. So I will write here run with. Now, if I open it, I get a import run with org.junit.run. And inside this run with, I'm going to write cucumber.class, something like this. So by doing this, I'm instructing this class file called as run test to run this using cucumber.class, and this run with is a JUnit. So in short, this cucumber is actually relying on JUnit to execute itself. This because this run with is a JUnit annotation, and here I'm mentioning I want to run this class using a special runner called as cucumber.class, right? If you can also see, there are two imports. One is for run with, this is coming from JUnit. Second is cucumber, which is coming from a cucumber library, right? Now the next step which I would like to do is of very high importance, that is to set the cucumber options. Now cucumber options is a way by which you can configure your cucumber. When I say configure, there are many ways by which you can make cucumber behave, right? So in sense, let me explain you that first. So right here, cucumber options. So I'm writing another annotation on top of this class, cucumber options. And if I import this, it will get imported, error will be resolved. And next step is I will write some specific things here. Let me tell you what. So one is features, then we have glue, then we have plugins, right? Then we have dry run, yeah, so just plugin, and then we have a dry run. What this, sorry, this is not, it is dry run equal to true. These are not the only ones, there are a few more, but I'm not going to venture on all these. I'm going to explain these four important ones. One is features. By doing this, you are instructing the cucumber where your feature files are kept. So for me, feature files are kept at under resources, features, and API. So I'm going to write here class path. This is how I can mention where if my feature files are kept under a resources folder. So class path indicates when you compile your code, the folder where all your classes are located is indicated by class path. This is how we mention to the cucumber that where to find the feature files at runtime, because when you compile the code, all compiled code and resources, everything goes to a bin folder or target folder where everything resides for execution. So I'm mentioning class path here and right here features. And inside features, I will say API. So all the folder structure is what you need to mention. I can also mention the get request. I can write here get requests dot feature. So I can write the complete name of the feature file, or I can write only the folder name. So if I'm doing only the folder name, all the feature files which are present here will be taken into account for execution. And that is what I want as well, because the more I will not going to add only one feature file here. I'm going to add multiple feature files. So one for get, one for post, one for put and delete, all those things, right? So anyway, I'm going to do that. Now in the glue, what is the glue? Glue is, as I was explaining earlier, with the use of a diagram. So every feature file is associated with a step def file, and that step def files also we need to mention that where my feature files are kept, where my def files, step def files are kept. So both the things I need to mention. And in this case, my step def files will be kept at step defs package. So I'm going to write here step defs. Step defs. Again, if there is subfolders, I need to put a dot and write that's the folder name, a sub package name. But in this case, I'm going to put that inside step defs. Or perhaps if I go and make another package here and make it as API, sorry, step defs dot API. That means API step definitions are kept here. Finish. Then I need to write here dot API. Now what are plugins? Now if I open the existing ones, let me show you one which is already there. For example, run test. So this is what was working before as I created last time. Now plugin is used if you want to add external libraries, or primarily it is used for configuration of your what kind of reports will be created for you. And I mean the name of, as a name suggests, plugin. That means you can add the external, you can plug in the external, some external functionalities to your existing Cucumber framework. Now using plugin, I am using this for, let me copy this and let me put it here, put this into some perspective. So in the plugin section, if you notice, I'm writing pretty, I'm writing HTML, target HTML, JSON, target JSON, file.json, and something else here as well, right? Now these two are the ways in Cucumber by which you can instruct Cucumber to create an HTML report, because Cucumber is also capable of generating a report. It can generate report in multiple ways. It can generate a JSON file as a report, which some different software can utilize to generate their own report. For example, if you're running this Cucumber from Jenkins has a plugin called as Cucumber Reporter plugin, and that Cucumber Reporter plugin uses this JSON file to generate the report in Jenkins dashboard. Secondly, HTML, right? So if you want to generate a local HTML file, which contains what is happening, or if you want to send that report to someone, what has happened in the while the execution was going on, then you need this HTML line here. And this is how you're instructing that I want to generate HTML, and that HTML file should be saved under target HTML file folder, right? If I put this into contrast with JUnit, JUnit is not capable of generating any report. So if I run it, all you saw was a simple execution stat, something like this. And this is not, emailable. I cannot email this. I cannot send this report to someone. Also, I'm not getting any information on what really happened, right? Everything is printed on the console. If you close the Eclipse, console will go on. You will not get what was a request, right? So that is why we need a full-fledged frameworks which has features of reporting, feature of logging, etc., etc. Now there is one more line called as, which is this. Now this is a plugin I'm using to generate a good looking HTML file. That good looking HTML file, there are multiple plugins available in the market, but I'm using in this case is what is called as extend report. I think it's a very famous library to generate reports, and they have created a Cucumber plugin. If you notice here, Cucumber adapter, and when you do it here, when you write it here, the job of this is it will automatically will read the execution logs and stats, and it will automatically will create a report for you, right? The previous version of this Cucumber report was little bit more complex, in the sense you need to initialize some objects, and those initialization, then you have to call specific methods to generate the reports or log information in the reports. But with the advent of this, with the coming of this Cucumber adapter via extend report, it becomes easy because all you have to do is write the statement here and that is it. Rest of the things, what's happening, which step was executed, what happened during that step, everything will be captured by extend report automatically. That is the advantage of this plugin. It's called as Cucumber adapter, and it is different than the previous version of extend report. So don't get confused, because some projects use the previous version of extend report where you have to actually create the objects and create the extend report of reporter object, and then you need to call specific methods to log the information. But here in this case, we don't need to do that. It will automatically will do it. But I am not doing it for now, because if you notice, I am only adding Cucumber plugins. Maybe in the next videos, coming sessions, we will implement the extend report as well, but not for this specific video, right? So I have added, or maybe I will remove this for now to avoid any kind of confusion. So maybe I will just put it here. And if you notice, the class file remains empty. So you're not supposed to write anything here in the class files. All you need to do is to write annotation, and the annotation arguments. If all this information is an annotation argument, Cucumber option is an annotation, and its argument contains these values. Right. So next step is what we are going to do is to execute this file.